Hello, all. This is Eli Esh, and today I am with Joe Oliveri. How do you say your last name?
Oliveri, but
Oliveri, Oliveri. Oliveri, and this is the Q at UMD podcast. So, Joe, tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from, your background in academia, and just personally.
yeah. So I grew up in the Midwest, between Minnesota and North Dakota. Moved a couple of times, but yeah, came up to UMD because coming from the Fargo area, I saw elevation when I was a kid up there and was just blown away. So I knew that's where I wanted to come, and I started out school in engineering. Mechanical engineering was the goal, and that did not go as planned for both health reasons, and like math and physics are some real, they get very real very quick.
Yeah.
So I took a semester off and kind of did that depressing uh shit, I did 1 year, and and now I got to figure out what the heck I want to go back to do. And so I had a job at Pizza Hut delivering pizza for a while, and like I knew that wasn't it. So that was good. And then I slowly started coming back to UMD to just kind of take classes that I was interested in, which was history, and happened upon the Statesman. I think you guys changed the name now, the student newspaper though, and
Okay.
we
Yeah.
yeah they were looking for a photographer, and so I was already into photography. My family does hair, and so like doing fashion photo shoots was something that was oddly accessible to me. But the newspaper really gave that like a purpose. Like, yeah,
Mhm.
you can handle the technical shit here, but uh, especially in the Midwest, like I have a hard time selling my flash photography, skills. Nobody's really interested in that. So um, yeah, I went more with the filmmaking and video storytelling.
Gotcha. So you mean
There's still
flash?
some purpose in there.
Got you. Flash photography, as in photo shoots. Is that what you?
Yeah, photo shoots, and like, yeah, you're just, in a studio environment, I guess, where you've got a hairstylist, constantly touching up
Gotcha.
the do.
Okay. Cool. And then you kind of navigated towards more video and storytelling, like long form.
Yep, yeah, definitely started with storytelling. It was useful to have, a photo for the news story or whatever, and
Hmm.
yeah, and then from there, my genesis really follows that of the Canon Mark II and what was my Nikon D70 at the time. All of these cameras were starting to allow shooting video. It was just where the market was going. Everyone wanted a photographer. If they were going to hire you, you need to be able to shoot some behind the scenes video.
Yep.
And at that point, I was really like not interested in video. It was a medium I didn't understand. You were just stuck with a whole bunch of footage that, unless you really have an idea or a lot of time to kill, it's tough to put that into a finished piece. A lot of people want to make movies and shit, but when you just go out and do all the shooting for them, sit them down in an edit bay and say like, okay, make a movie, like it's not that fun for most people unless you've got some passion and there's some use in telling that story. So
Yep.
like a year or two ago, I got to do a documentary for the WDSE. That's the PBS station on campus, technically, I think. And
Okay.
I got to tell the history of um, the trails was the idea. So the Masabi Trail and the Gunflint Trail, and
Okay.
through that, I was kind of able to infuse the history of the area. Why the hell are these trails up here? And all of that goes back to people and their needs and the economies that came through Duluth. So it was really kind of cool after being out of college for 10 years or something to like realize, oh sweet, like I'm glad I have a history degree. I didn't need it necessarily, but like it was super useful, and finally kind of an aha moment for me that college wasn't just like all of this exploring different areas without like anything really tangible when I left. It was,
Hmm.
I had a hell of a time when I left college, like figuring out okay, what now? You know, like I wanted to
Exactly. Yeah.
be a freelance photographer, but what the hell does that mean? Like,
Huh. Yeah.
you get real poor and then you figure it the fuck out pretty quick. You know, that the fear of poverty is very strong in me, and I like to use that. You know.
That. Huh. Interesting. Very interesting, Joe. If you, I'm really curious. So, culture entrepreneurship wasn't a degree when you were there, correct?
Right.
At
Yeah, I
UMD.
learned
Yeah.
about it from Aparna. She, I think, through Zeitgeist. You know, just kind of small town Duluth connections.
Yep.
She heard about me, and we got to making a video, and I found, like, I was like, I think the kind of saying at the time was like the home for the misfits or something, and I was like, oh my god, if this should have been around when I was there, you know, I would have been there.
I think that's a pretty good way to put it. Yeah. We're definitely different people, and just it's nice to be free thinking kind of, and just super creative. So yeah, if Q was established when you were there, how would that have like benefited and assisted you personally, do you think?
I'm I don't think thinking entrepreneurially, or like, you know, you don't put that term in a degree really. That's just like shooting the moon, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, not to get too deep, but like just the way our economy is set up right now, it's kind of stupid to, you know, be an entrepreneur to a certain degree. Like, yeah, you can get to a point, but like really breaking through and making serious money, you know, it's tough these days. And it's kind of been nice having my grandfather around. I told you he's 95, and it's nice to, you know, wing some ideas past him, and why don't you go find some funding for this? And it's like, you know, these days it's like more of a, you kind of build it and then hope people start using this app, or I forget what we were talking about. And yeah, anyways, we
Well,
don't need to go down that hole.
how did you get into videography, and how did you like break in to the industry kind of, but like, would you even say like you're really, what's your place in it right now, and how did you find yourself there?
Yeah, right now I work with a lot of nonprofits. You know, I still like, I enjoy using, you know, my talents to tell stories that I find meaningful or useful. Like, you know, Zeitgeist is a great organization, an example, or even, you know, better yet, like Lifehouse, like a homeless youth shelter. We can all agree that that's kind of, you know, we don't want homeless kids hanging around our city. Let's find some places for them. And you know, again, like the economy in Duluth is tough, so I'm always working on a discount, you know, or kind of prorated rates with these folks. But I mean, that's the most meaningful shit that I get to do with my time. Entrepreneurially, like finding a way to, you know, work on some long form documentary or something that would like pay me for a full year or two to study some bigger issues like that would be great. And all of this kind of COVID time has allowed me to really kind of settle down on that. Like, I really need to just spend a month or whatever it takes and go after some national or international grants so that we can kind of break out of the Duluth economy. You know, it's tough to come up with $100,000 or, you know, whatever you might need to run a business just in this Twin Ports area. It's rough. You know,
Yeah,
I've done it before, but it's like, it's so, we are a boom and a bust economy here by historically, and that that's trickled down, you know, like that still is very much evident here in the housing stock. And, you know, I'm 33 and I still don't own a home. So that's another, like, if you're going to get into this entrepreneurial shit, like have some, yeah, you know, it's a lot of your lifestyle is very much like just that, and hoping the market, you know, flips around. And it's interesting now. Like, I've been in touch with all my clients, obviously, and they want to hire me. It's just, you know, no one has money right now, or it's kind of tough to throw marketing dollars around when everyone's kind of in this COVID lockdown, and like, let's see when this blows over.
It's interesting. So you have found personally that the Duluth market has like a cap to it of like potential for like in terms of like what you can get for
For now, and with the
for now.
competition
Okay.
that's here, yeah, without, kind of hoping to monopolize anything. But
Do you think
this
moving to like this Twin Cities or a larger market is gonna really help?
it's so much of it is the cost in Duluth. A lot of my clients, I kind of have to ease them into this idea of like, I am $250 an hour, and then edits are, on top of that. And like, that's still, when I type it out in an invoice, it gets me giddy that like, that's an obscene hourly rate, but it's not just, what goes into that hour, obviously. But yeah, a $2,500 day rate like is pretty tough to stomach in Duluth. Twin Cities, they used to have a lot more larger scale production shooting here, and so like I'm coming in on the cheaper end of the scale here, and so that's kind of what I've been gearing up for is just farming out, finding a little bit more work here so that I can stay in Duluth and do what I enjoy.
Cool.
And that's all just, trying to stay in this community that I really enjoy, but just being realistic about like my expectations of it, I think. We have this upper Midwest film office. Was it the Catalyst Festival came into town, that film fest, and now there's some really big rebates for people that would want to make film and productions in our area. And hopefully, that's all set up to benefit people like me is, a big part of their pitch. Whether or not that happens, I don't know, but there is some movement in that area, so it's encouraging to see.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, how did you just decide Duluth is the spot just because you graduated from the university, or how did you end up building your brand out of Duluth?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have a good reason to leave, is as good of an answer as I can give you. I really love the area, and
community.
yeah, I grew up in a really small town in North Dakota, and like now, 10 years or whatever after college, like, well, no, not that long, but it's been really nice to kind of wrap my head around the business community. I think of it the same way I do Castleton, North Dakota, where I grew up, like this just tiny little town. Certain people through others, and you're able to kind of tie all of these networks together. Not quickly, it's taken me a lot of time of working around the area, but I enjoy that kind of feeling of camaraderie. And
Cool. So we didn't even really get into your business actually. So it's called Wherehouse Productions, correct? That's your company?
Yeah, Wherehouse Productions is the third iteration of me doing production work. It started, again, I said freelance. I was just like Joe Oliveri Photography, or photographer or something. And then I worked with a business partner for a while as Lola Visuals for like 3 to 5 years or something like that. And then he went off and got my partner went off and got a job, and so I was kind of stuck in like, okay, what's the regenesis look like of this? I want to keep finding clients and fighting for work. I enjoy that entrepreneurial stuff. And so yeah, the Warehouse was spelt WHERE. That was just kind of the best idea I had at the time. That it was January of a new year, and I'm like, I need to form a new LLC so I can keep making money and try and transition some of my clients over to working with me now instead of as a team with my partner. And yeah, I had dreamt of this space that was kind of a creative space for creatives to get weird and vibe off of each other. I think it's more efficient if we're creating art in kind of a community where I can be inspired by somebody's jamming around on their guitar, what have you, and that'll kind of keep me in motion. And yeah, all of this comes back to like just the efficiency, and I get really You know, I started out school with engineering, and so I like to think I've got this kind of harsh split between a left and right brain, and I really enjoy making art and everything, but for me, there's a point that part of my brain just sees that as me fucking around in a sandbox. You know, like I can do that. I love it. It's great, but how the hell are we going to pay for it? You know, how are we going to find somebody that's going to find use out of this media, or why I'm just making TikToks all day and, you know, fucking around? Like, at what point is this professional and useful for society? So,
Good,
yeah, that's
a way to think of it.
Yeah, I get kind of caught up in that much, a bit too much even. You know, it's been with COVID, it's making money, you know, it's kind of an impossibility, especially in certain areas. And so I started doing these rent parties out of Zeitgeist, where we were just like asking for donations, and got to have some musicians come in and, you know, be distanced and still do a live stream. And so that was really great to get back in that environment of like being creative and being around other artists and everything. But really, it was one of those experiences and experiments that ends in, well, we just, you know, there's just not the money in Duluth to keep something like that going, you know?
Yeah, I think that's really what you seem to come back to each time. It's just the market isn't there, really.
Yeah, and it is for, you know, some stuff, but a lot of it does need to be subsidized, and I think that's why it's exciting that this UMFO, as we call them now, you know, this film grant is coming up to the area that could be huge, and that, you know, 25% cash back for people, you know, hiring out for big productions, that could break the mold, you know. But that's just like the realism of living in Duluth, and the economy there has always been tough. Like, that's no secret. I spent a lot of time learning that, you know, between, what do you say, finishing college in 2010 and now, and learning, you know, sitting out at Canal Park Brewing after they had just opened this great patio, and some guys, you know, I'd say older, but like they were maybe 10 years older than me, and they were talking about how they remembered, you know, seeing all the rusted old cars, and Canal Park was a junkyard in the 80s. And so just like understanding how short of a time it's really been in Duluth, that people have tried to turn it into this tourist paradise. And I mean, God, with the way the North Shore Trail and all of those photos are blowing up online, it's like we're living at the front steps of Disney World now. So that's encouraging, that, you know, hopefully all of the stuff that we've built, like bent paddle wasn't a thing, you know, when I was finishing college.
Yeah, I've been seeing bent paddle everywhere too.
But seeing those industries, you know, like do well in Duluth, out of Duluth, and then come down to the cities, like that's been encouraging. Because another, you know, little limerick about the economy in Duluth was like, it was in the 80s, I want to say, but there was this billboard. It was just super asinine, but it said, will the last person to leave Duluth please turn out the lights? Because everyone was just getting the fuck out of Dodge, you know? And like, it's interesting now that we were just so realistic about that, you know, and without like the universities up there, and
yeah,
I mean, there's always going to be some shipping, but it's like, what keeps drawing people to this area, and how do we make it function sustainably? Because obviously people love coming up there to see, you know, to hike the trails, see the lake, whatever, but how do we,
it's a beautiful area.
Yeah, how do we make it fully sustainable for people to live up here and make art? And you know, I try not to even call it art so much. It's like, I'm trying to just do the production work, and if we can enable artists along the way, that's really great. But yeah, there's a lot going on up here. It's just there's a level of realism, I think, that you got to have.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there, and I think it's good that you know that you're aware of all of that. So how or why did you begin Wherehouse? Like, what's your purpose behind that?
Yeah, I mean, I think on my website, when I just like had to type it out, it's like, this is the place for me to make art. But you know, so much more than that, obviously. Like, I need to have that outlet to get creative while also making it meaningful, you know, helping other people with those skills. and ultimately, you know, like I'd like to get to a point where I'm creating jobs where I can get these national, international level grants and hire out some top-notch talent in town, because we have that, and it feels good, you know, when you can pay your buddy or, you know, another professional some like real money. So yeah, the warehouse, you know, like I get diverted a whole lot, but yeah, I wanted the space where it's more efficient and everything, and so I just like needed to rebrand and called it that, and it just kind of sat on it for a couple of years until this documentary I had with WDSC. I was able to hire out a couple of people, and so kind of scale up the production and hire out an audio guy, so it's not just me one man banding everything, which is kind of what the market supports most of the time. But it's nice that I have those feelers out in the community where I was able to find a guy that's, you know, would be good on camera, and somebody that would run the audio for me. So I was able to kind of piece this team together, and that was super gratifying for me. And I hope, you know, I can keep going down that road and playing with that. That was kind of a new aha moment for me, really, in my career. And
that
you know,
big the production
yeah,
about the trail systems.
yeah, just getting into, you know, and even that was about an hour-long piece, so nothing long, not super long, but yeah, I really enjoyed that, and it felt like I'm, you know, kind of making use of all of my skill sets and education and everything. So
first,
that's
where did you like share that with the world? Where did you post that to?
that was all under WDSE, so that's like, you know, I was contracted out for that piece. Okay. So you can go on their website, and like it's under their documentaries, and it's called The Trails, History of the Trails or something like that. It won't have my name on it, so, you know, it's just, you'll see a professor from St. Scholastica, Paul Lajeunesse, who does he did a mural that's on Damage, you know, on your way into Bent Paddle. And so he's an artist as well, you know, that we similarly have these interesting genesises. Like now he started off as a painter and, you know, was just doing landscape stuff, similar to me with photography. Like I was very, you know, talented technically at all that shit, and I did a showing at Pizza Luce in college, and, you know, I was just listening to people's thoughts on all of this, you know, $1,000 worth of art I had printed for the walls, and they were just like, wow, this guy's been a lot of places. You know, it's just like I'm sending my postcards to people that it doesn't mean anything to. So kind of adding that storyteller aspect of it, you know, Paul does the same thing in his art now. Like it's not just one landscape painting. He's infused faces of the people that came from there, and, you know, he's telling stories with the medium. And so that was really inspiring for me. So we really connected on that. And yeah, I'm trying to follow that that road, but it's tough entrepreneurially. Like, do I want to just spend, you know, a month or whatever writing a grant, hoping that I can find $50,000 to $100,000 to do a piece like that, you know? Or do I just shoot for more tangible, like the wedding markets, where I can find, you know, $2,000 to $5,000 in a weekend shoot? So.
Yeah. Huh. So you mentioned you teamed up with like an audio person and more people for that larger production, but outside of that, just typically, do you work alongside other people? Is it just you running the entire show? Or are you just a one-man band?
Yeah, I mean, it's typically like as Warehouse, just me. Okay. Again, that's what we can afford here. So I've tried to make it most efficient, you know, for local organizations or a business or whatever. Let's say they have a marketing director or whatever. I try and plug myself in with them and just say, like, you guys know your brand far better than I could ever hope to, especially at the rates, you know, I'm going to be charging here. And so let's find a way to team up on this. And so I like to, this is kind of a hallmark of my productions. Like, I'm always sure to share with them the really raw, nitty gritty timeline. If they're looking for a 2-minute piece, you know, I'll share it when it's just 2 minutes of narrative and say, like, close your eyes. The video is going to look like shit right now. Let's just be sure your messaging is there. Because I found, like, if I deliver a fully polished piece that has, you know, these beautiful shots of their building or drone shit, or, you know, people get really excited about that, and it just kind of glosses them over. And I want to be sure, you know, the messaging is on point and there before we go forward and realize that, you know, it's not just a kind of a moving portrait kind of thing of the company.
Yeah, those cinematic shots can be pretty nice, pretty glossy, and then you can forget the message. I think that's super true. I personally, I have always loved videography and storytelling and just making them making the short movies. But yeah, that's super interesting. So back to like how your business has been affected by COVID. Like, what does that look like in the past year? Have you been able to get any work?
It's been tough. You know, I work with the theater communities here, all of the shuttered venues, and like, no, you know, I look at, like, if I was running, you know, some big arts organization, I wouldn't want to be spending money right now. You know, you want to kind of be sure you survive and make it through this stuff. I have had, you know, a couple of pieces. I did a PSA with St. Louis County Public Health about like testing for COVID, and that was great and meaningful. But you know, even nationally, I'd say, like, it's really interesting with COVID that we haven't had a documentary crew federally funded following Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson and saying, like, here's how vaccines are normally made, here's how this one is made. Like, we have all the information, you know, on tap with the internet right now, and so people really want to know what the heck they're putting in their bodies with the shot. And so there's just kind of been a lack of conversation overall, or again, this is a deep dive. I don't know why I'm going down that rabbit hole, but anyways, well, yeah, it's definitely been tough to find the work. And, you know, I have done some work, you know, in the meantime, but like, no, I've been honestly like juggling, doing some live streams for like donations and filling out my unemployment shit at the same time. So like, no, times are rough realistically, but it's also been a great break for me to kind of look at, like, what do I want to do? What parts of the business were working and what parts just disappeared now that you know, COVID hit, or yeah, I mean, similarly when we had the Q Fair, you know, we were talking on this call a few months ago. Like, it's a really kind of a cool time to consider what business you want to be working on, or what do you want to do with your life, and just understand, like, everyone's broke right now. Like, you kind of get to take that that variable out of the equation. So it's kind of a nice time to just thought experiment, you know.
For sure. So before, you were doing a lot of work with theater, like theater venues and stuff.
Yeah, I do some work with, you know, the North Shore Playhouse, Zeitgeist. I'm working with Sacred Heart right now as well. You know, these organizations that are trying to keep the arts alive and reminding you of all these musicians that we're used to seeing, and filmmakers and poets, and, you know, the things that make Duluth have really just kind of dried up over COVID, and it's just tough to get back out there and socialize. And so there's those organizations, and you know, even we had the shuttered venues fund federally to try and get, you know, us to remember what's going on at these places. And like the Playhouse did some cool live stream holiday concerts. So like, they're trying to still put some content out there, but I always go back to this Marshall McLuhan book called The Medium is the Message. We spelled it massage in the original title, but you know, we know what you expect out of a live concert, right? Like, you know how to get off your ass and go and do that and pay $20 at the door if it needs to be. but we don't know what to expect out of a live stream concert, or like, what does that look like, and how do you get people to pay their money? And is there still a communal feeling? Like, you're not dancing with anyone, like, how does that work? And so a lot of my last year has been playing around with this live streaming medium, and like, how do you best use it? Is it, I think about, like even Joe Rogan podcasts that'll run up to 3 hours, or like Getting Dug with High is another kind of hallmark of some years ago. There was this pot comedian that they just sit around and smoke pot, and it was like you were in the room with them with some celebrities and they're just being goofy. And it's kind of that background entertainment is what I'm finding this medium is really cool for. And so yeah, there's been a lot of time to kind of do exploration and play around with COVID times here. But as far as monetizing that, like, that's been the trick. And so my brain's really been racking for like, and not even just me, like, I want to be sure that these musicians are getting paid $250 an hour. Most people that go out and play at a bar, they're going to just do it for whiskey or whatever. And going back to like your hourly wage, most people that work an hourly job think getting paid $50 an hour is crazy. That's awesome. But a musician or, somebody like me, you're spending so many hours practicing for that 1 hour that, you're being paid for. Yeah. And so it's, I wish I had a bucket of money and could really champion the arts in our area and say, here's what we need to be charging. This is what this shit is worth. Yes, you could just do this gig and put that towards your new camera. I struggled with that when I was kind of coming up in the industry, just undercharging for my services because people don't know what they're worth. I didn't know what it was worth then. I didn't know what it cost to buy a new camera every year, let alone now I'm like, okay, I need to spend about $20,000 to $30,000 every year on new shit. And like, that's just the realism of it, but it's also, it sounds, insurmountable as, a fresh out of college with a shitload of debt, just like, where do you start? I can't get a loan. Yeah, I'd be curious to hear about how that's affecting your generation too, moving forward. This trying to be entrepreneurial, and you could have the best idea, but if your debt is sky high and through Wells Fargo and not some subsidized program, it's I have friends that I feel could do what I'm doing the same if not better, but they didn't have the chance because they had to be paying $500 to $1,000 a month, a couple months after graduation. So you don't get to go fuck around and just try and freelance and
right?
Pick up what you can find.
Really absurd the amount of debt kids have gone into, and I mean, it's just so crazy.
It'll set you back 20 years. I have friends that were leaving medical school, and they were like, we're going to be living, in rentals and shit till we're 40. It's and he'll have delivered, hundreds of babies and like doing super important things for the community, but we just don't. Yeah, there's a level of our economy that's just broken, but it's also, I try not to get too too stuck in that or too in the weeds. Otherwise you could just like boo-hoo the whole time and be, well, I'm an entrepreneur, but the economy's fucked up, so I can't do anything now. Yeah, it's definitely like being aware of that stuff and kind of trying to find your way through.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking your time and giving us a little insight about what your life is like and how COVID's affected your business.
Yeah, man, much appreciated. I hope you can untangle all of my rambling.
I'm sure the people will like it, and I mean, they've liked the past ones I've done, so I thank you so much for your time, Joe, and hopefully we can talk in the future.
All right, thanks, Elijah. I look forward to checking out the rest of your stuff.
Cool. Thank you so much, man.